Hello, bloggers. Today I'm talking with Sean Platt. Sean's story is a modern day American success story, or maybe it should be called an internet success story. His complete story is available in his book titled WriterDad, which I've read and I enjoyed it because I relate to it so much. So I want to kick this off by starting there. Sean, you really have come a long way, and I know many new bloggers will find your story fascinating and inspiring. So let's start from the beginning. Share with us how you started out working in your dad's floral shop and how you developed this interest in writing for a living, which came about later than most folks. Like, I think you're in your late 20s when you decided to pursue writing. Is that right?
Actually 30s. Not my late 30s. I'm in my late 30s now.
Oh,
But
wow.
my wife bought me a MacBook for my 30th birthday and said, I think you should start writing. And she'd been trying to get me to write for a long, long time, pretty much since our first date. And she was a teacher. And I was a high school dropout. And so I figured, of course, you think I should write. I don't know where the commas go. And she always rejected that notion and said, you're articulate and there's no reason that you can't get your articulation onto the page. And if you can, you would be successful at this. You should try. But I didn't, even after getting the MacBook, I didn't really do anything with it for a couple of years. And then I started writing. To answer your question about the flower shop, that's where I got my work ethic from.
Mm-hmm.
We had a family business, and flower shop is not easy. It's like the restaurant business where,
Mm-hmm.
holidays are your hardest times. You're always dealing in perishable product. The hours are grueling. I used to go with my dad to the flower market like 2 a.m, which was crazy. And just constantly working. We never took family vacations. And so like getting into the blogging grind was natural for me because I don't need sleep, so it wasn't until I left the flower business in my late 20s, and my wife and I opened up a preschool so we could kind of be with our children the first
Mm-hmm.
5 years. And after my daughter went to kindergarten, I felt sad. She was like my best friend, and like my little best friend
Mm-hmm.
is like now in like school or full time. And so Cindy, my wife, said, well, why don't you try writing now? And so I did, and that was in September. And by December I had a 600-page rough draft for a novel
Hmm.
that wasn't good at all, but I knew that at least I could keep my butt in the chair for several months and produce. And so after that it was kind of a short road to starting a blog and just getting out there and trying to put my name out. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that was, I guess, 7 years ago now.
Wow. Yeah, I started following you, I think it was in 2012. So I think you were already into your fiction writing career.
Yeah, I would have been done. I had a couple of phases there. WriterDad was the first,
Okay.
and then I started a site called The Digital Writer, and I blew that up pretty quickly, actually. That started from nothing, and within a few months had 15,000 writers on a list. And
Hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
I just got sick of it all and destroyed the list, deleted everything, and said I'm never blogging again.
Mm-hmm.
And then started the podcast, and the podcast has been a very natural way for me to communicate. I love it. I've never been happier. And
Mm-hmm.
so between that is what I do for nonfiction, and then I write fiction almost full time.
Did you used to have a site called Ghostwriter Dad as well?
Yeah, I did. That was in the time when I was very quickly losing my house because I thought I'm smart. I can make this writing thing work online. And
Yeah.
so I was writing keyword articles at $5 a pop and
Wow.
writing 20 a day.
Wow.
And that's when I learned to write really fast because
Yeah.
it was the only way to keep my head above water. But that wasn't enough because we had a Southern California mortgage then we bought at the height, of the bubble. And so I was losing my house. And so I thought, you know what, writer dad, and I made the mistake a lot of bloggers do, where you feel that attention is equivalent to currency, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was immediately when I started from my very first post, I was getting, 100 comments a post. And so I thought, wow, a lot of people are reading this. That means the money's going to come, which
Mm-hmm.
is absurd. Like that's, it's a really stupid thing to think. You can't do that. You have to, I have a very practical business mind
Mm-hmm.
because I've, ever since fifth grade selling candy bars on the playground, I've always had some kind of entrepreneurial bent to me. But I got online and got stupid. I thought that the practical rules of brick and mortar no longer mattered in this digital fantasy land, and that's just that's stupid. Of course they do. They
Yeah.
matter even more. And so I didn't have any way to, alchemize my content into currency. And then I thought, well, I already have a name as WriterDad. I might as well put a ghost in front of it and
Hmm.
and hire myself out. And at the time I had transitioned from keyword articles, but I was just losing my ass on those keyword articles. So I thought, you know what? I
Hmm.
need to find out what will pay me the absolute most per word. And so I realized that copywriting, if I could write a converting sales page, I would never go hungry again. And
Hmm.
so I learned copywriting, and that was, a huge shift in not just my business, but in the way I thought, and really everything that I'm doing now is a direct result of that transition.
Yeah. I remember reading in Writer Dad, there was a lady in Ohio that was instrumental in that for you, right?
Yeah, Lori Taylor,
Yeah.
still one of my best friends in the world. I love her to pieces. Yeah, she saw something that I wrote, and we started talking, and she said, "So you're better than 95% of writers in this world, but that last 4%, that's where the millions are made." And
Hmm.
that was just a hell of a pitch. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had just lost our house, and so we moved to Cincinnati, Ohio, to work with her. And I worked with her for a couple of years before moving to Austin, which is where we are now.
Yeah. So, this entrepreneurial spirit that you talk about having since childhood, how important is that for an independent writer to have?
For a successful writer, I think
Yeah.
it's essential. I think that if you just want to write, you can do that. But if you want to build a business, to build a career on writing, I think you kind of have to treat it like a business.
Mm-hmm.
If you and a lot of people think I'm down on traditional publishing because I'm so fiercely independent, but I'm not at all. I think that traditional publishing is the best bet for a lot of authors. You just have to know who you are and what you want. You have to know your why.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, independence and freedom, like I like bonding with my audience. I like being able to nurture my list of readers, and like having that control is really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just wanted to write the book, then a publisher would be a much better alternative because they're going to handle the cover design and the editing and the basic marketing, even though they really only go whole hog in that way for
Mm-hmm.
their best authors.
Mm-hmm.
Still, it's better than some authors are going to do anyway, right? If I was really interested in getting in bookstores and airports and Costco's, then
Yeah.
a traditional, not really. I know that will happen eventually, just
Mm-hmm.
because the climate and the culture is going to change. It's already changed a lot. We're not there yet. Indies aren't in Target, but they will be, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
be ready when that happens. And I'm just not in a hurry for that. That's not part of my why.
Yeah. I know a lot of people listening are pretty excited about that. Have you been approached by a traditional publisher?
Yeah, we traditionally publish books, but they're stepchildren in the family.
I'm
I'm not.
sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there.
Oh, we have published books at our company, Sterling and Stone, which has several different imprints, and we have four books. The three books in the zombie series and another book called Monstrous are, but they're almost like stepchildren because
Mm-hmm.
we don't have control over them. If we want to put books on sale, we can't. If we want to change the last page calls to action in those books, we can't. If we want to update because, we know that like the first book in that series has typos, we can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because the traditional publisher didn't catch them.
Hmm.
And even though we've pointed it out, they pretty much told us it doesn't really matter.
Hmm.
So I like having the control over my work. My name is on it. I want to make sure that the quality is optimum. And if I know there are typos, I want those typos fixed.
Yeah, there's something about ownership. I mean, it's amazing Prince didn't even own Purple Rain.
Right. Well, well, that's why, like I think he fastidiously re-recorded a bunch of stuff in his own studio just as
Right.
a middle finger to, Warner Brothers, which,
Exactly. And
you
change
know,
your name. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so, what would you say was your lowest point in this journey?
Well, the fear that I'm not really taking care of my family and that I'm indulging my own whims and, and putting what I want to do above their not their emotional well-being because they were always taking care of but like it was risky, like going out and saying I could do this in a time frame that wasn't really reasonable and
Mm,
losing the house, that sucked. And then,
mm,
moving them to Ohio to rebuild was great. And I was actually making very good money as a copywriter. And when I finally pulled us up from, the dredges and had paid off all our debt and was, making a good income, I just did it all over again. Hey, I'm going to write fiction, which, that takes a long time to build that business. No, you're not
mm,
going to just break out immediately. That's unreasonable expectation. And I kind of knew that going into it and was content. And, that was 3 years ago at this point. So,
yeah.
it's I'm doing fine now, but it took a long time. And,
Yeah.
it's not really a dark moment because I don't, I feel like it's all part of the process, and so I don't know. I've never been really afraid to make mistakes. I feel like I learn from them. And I don't really have dark moments. Like I'm a pretty optimistic guy.
Mm.
Someone on our team the other day made a joke that Sean is so optimistic that if he sees a glass that's half empty, he scoots under the table, looks up at it and says, looks full to me, which, is kind of true. But I appreciate being wired that way because it means I do take more chances. And,
Yeah.
like I may fail a lot, but when I hit it hard. And
Yeah.
that's very exciting. And I think that that's really exciting, not just for me, but for the team. And I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of really amazing people.
Hmm.
My partners and teammates are just incredible and they
Hmm.
help me, to do more than I could ever do on my own. But a lot of that is that we're all willing to, risk together. But the fear is there for sure that
Hmm.
sometimes I'm not going to perform for my family in the way they deserve me to.
Hmm. Yeah. So, were you ever tempted to abandon, this crazy dream and get a regular job or?
No, no, not even for a second. I've never had a regular job. I mean, in my life, I'm not. I'm probably unemployable. And even when I was working with Lori, she offered me a substantial amount of money to sign a contract.
Yeah.
And I'm not a contract guy. Like I don't want to sign a contract. I didn't even want an email address with the company name. Where I had to turn that down. And it's not that I didn't love the work that I was doing, but freedom is just a core. It's just a core tenet of who I am and how I want to live my life. That's my why. Like I need to have
Yeah.
freedom. And so no,
Autonomy, right?
yeah, yeah, there was never any risk of me going and getting a regular job. That I just needed to figure out ways to make it work.
That's amazing, man. That really inspires me. I mean, where do you think that tenacity comes from?
Probably a misplaced optimism that everything's always going to be fine. And I'm fortunate, I had good parents. I mean, they're crazy, but like they had their own business. I think everyone in my family, no one in my family has had a job. And I mean that on both sides of my family. Like we're all entrepreneurs. It's in our
Hmm.
blood, so I don't know that I have it in me to go out and get a job. It's just like I always want to carve my own path, and freedom is always going to be more important to me than money. Happiness is always going to be more important to me than money. And so like, I don't need the security of knowing that I'm going to get the same amount every month. And my wife has, like an almost unreasonable faith in me that I'll
Mm-hmm.
make everything okay. Because she's actually wired the opposite. She's wired for security. She would much
Mm-hmm.
rather have, even if it was less money, she'd rather have the same amount of money every month that she could count on.
Mm-hmm.
The fluctuations are very difficult for her. But she also, loves me and trusts me and knows that, my happiness is a driving force in our family.
It sounds like we both got lucky in that department as far as spouses go.
Yeah, I'm very lucky for a lot of reasons, and none bigger than my relationship with Cindy.
Me too. Not with Cindy. Mine's named Laurel. So
Well, that's good.
yeah. So then what advice do you have for someone right now in 2016 to write for a living? Not just write, but actually work for themselves, be independent, work from home, the whole internet life dream thing.
Well, it just depends on what they're doing, I think.
Mm,
Blogging is very different from writing nonfiction, which is very different, nonfiction books, I mean, which is even more different from writing fiction books or having a podcast network or being a YouTube star or like they're all very different answers.
mm,
But I think that the global response could be educate yourself.
hmm,
And I think that a lot of people, when I see a lot of people who are kind of circling the drain and they're not really getting to where they want to go, a lot of times they're just looking for either easy solutions
hmm,
or free answers. And in my experience, neither one of those are efficient ways to get where you're going. As far as free information, a lot of times the stuff that has helped me most, has helped me get smarter faster, has been a paid solution. You
hmm,
can spend a lot of time, picking up this little tidbit and that little tidbit by just looking all over online and Google searching stuff and looking for free tips on blogs. But when I want to know something, I go find the source of the information, the best quality information I can, and I pay for it because
hmm,
I feel like my time is more important than anything else I have. I can always make more money. I will never make more time. I will never, ever manufacture another moment, no matter how successful I become. So my time is what I protect with, everything I have. And so it's important to me to just get the solution I need and just pony up for it. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. They would
yeah.
rather just, go kind of, it's like, why hunt and peck if I could learn to type? And it's the same thing. I just think that you need to go out and get what you need. My definition of mojo is, the speed at which you get what you want. And
Hmm.
I think that it's important to, go out and get what you want, get what you need to become smarter, faster. And I know I had another point there too, educating yourself. And
Hmm.
I don't remember the other thing that I said just 5 minutes ago. So apparently I ramble too much.
Well, you were talking about paying for it as well, and that includes paying for your own self-hosted blog, doesn't it, Sean?
Well, yes, absolutely. Dave and I, my first partner at Sterling and Stone, he always wanted to have a website that's hosted on WordPress.com, and I just think that's absurd
Hmm.
because you have to. You need to be able to have your opt-in pages. You need to be able to have control. And I mean, like that's just such a small expense for the freedom that you get on the other side. I think that it's funny how few writers specifically are willing to pay for,
Yeah.
quality tools. And to me, like, how can you treat it like a business and not pay for tools? It's not like you have warehouse space to rent or retail goods to, warehouse. Like
Right.
you got it pretty easy. Pay for the basic tools.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've talked to a lot of people who make tools for businesses, like,
Hmm.
lead pages type of stuff, apps for Facebook, things like this.
Hmm.
And the indie author community is so big. And when I ask these people, why aren't they making tools for indie authors? They say because indie authors don't want to pay for them. And it's just
Hmm.
kind of sad because I think the space would be doing better if people were willing to pay for the basic tools that would help them do their jobs better.
Yeah, exactly. I see that as well. You know, I talk to people and sometimes they go with Blogspot or, WordPress.com or whatever. But yeah, you definitely need your own platform that's self-hosted. That's what Sean does. So did you self-host with going clear back to like WriterDad?
No, I self-hosted with WriterDad, which is my very, very first site. And
WriterDad.
yeah, like I never even, I mean, I started out on day one with a professional theme. And this was back
Hmm.
when that was kind of unheard of. This was 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought Thesis. And
Mm-hmm.
premium themes were like a brand new thing. And, but
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I always, always, always from day one thought of my time online as a business. If I'm going to go online and I'm going to be writer dad, and at the time I didn't even use my real name. I was just writer dad, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like I I wasn't Sean. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
admit to being writer dad, but I did as much as I could to make my site look professional, and I had a professional theme, and I put my best foot forward, and I bought my domain and figured all the hosting and stuff out, which like I was not a tech guy. Like the computer I got for my 30th birthday was my first computer. Like I had not been even
Mm-hmm.
using it for long. And I'm figuring all this stuff out. I'm figuring SEO out. And that was just part of it. I think again, like
Mm-hmm.
I am an entrepreneur and I did treat it like a business. And I think that when you're in business, you can't use only free tools and expect your best results. Like it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. So, to be a successful entrepreneur, online entrepreneur, what are, some of the most important traits that a blogger needs to develop, like in one word, like tenacity or,
Well, tenacity. You have to be willing to make mistakes. Put yourself out there. Be honest. Stop trying to be, the homogenized version of you that you think the world wants to see or hear. Just be yourself. Put your heart on the page.
Mhm.
If you just sit there and try to write really professional sounding blog posts,
Mm.
I don't know. If you try to resonate with everyone, you're going to resonate with no one. And that's true 100% of the time. No one is going to feel deeply passionate about what you are writing if you are writing it for a general audience. You need to figure out who your ideal reader is and write specifically to them 100% of the time.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So, Sean, what does your blogging routine look like? Can we get a peek behind the curtain?
I don't have a blogging routine. All of our blog right now is an absolute mess. It's the worst thing ever. But in a couple of months from this recording, it will be gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and we'll have really great blog content once a week. But I won't be writing that. Um,
Okay.
I really the digitalwriter.net site that I had, not I guess 4 years ago, we would do these, or I guess I should say I would do these big, long, epic posts. They were like 5,000 words, lots of links, lots of examples. But I just burned out on them and it
Mm-hmm.
built my list really fast, but I didn't feel super passionate about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I'm just over that. I never want to do anything that I'm not truly, truly passionate about ever again because life is too short.
Hmm.
So 4 years ago, Johnny B. Truant, who is my other writing partner at Sterling and Stone,
Mm-hmm.
talked me and Dave into doing a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, but we didn't launch it. I had no, I don't know, I had no, I guess, plans for it. It was just, hey, why don't we show up once a week and talk about what is and isn't working as we're indie publishing? And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay. And I was just always myself. And before then, I never swore online. So Writer Dad was very, very clean. Ghost
Mm-hmm.
Writer Dad was very, very clean. Digital Writer was very, very clean. And yeah, the self-publishing podcast was just like, it was just three guys like hanging out. And I was truly, truly myself, and that was a lot of fun. And it is a lot of fun. I mean, we're recording today. We're recording our 212th episode.
Wow.
We've done it every week for 4 years, and
Mm.
it's a blast. And because we were so authentic, with just being ourselves, the site grew, or the show grew. And it's funny because we pretty much break every single podcasting rule there is,
Mhm.
which is what I mean about, really being yourselves and not being afraid to alienate the right people, or
Mhm.
the wrong people, I guess I should say. So the right people find you. It runs long. It's off topic. We curse.
Mhm.
We're just like it breaks all the podcasting rules, and yet it's done very well. It's given us, quite an awesome platform. And ever since we now have 9 podcasts in our network, and that
Mm.
is how we blog. So eventually, once our site gets, redone, we'll transcribe some of them, and that will be some written content. But mostly, all of our posts are just links to shows that we've done. So that is
Mm.
kind of the blogging routine. Is I just show up for the shows.
So do you start your day writing?
Yeah, I wake up between 5 and 5:30 every day.
Hmm.
No alarm. That's when I wake up. And I just immediately get started on production. So I'm not writing a lot of rough draft copy right now, but I have 3 different writing partners that I'm
Mm.
constantly collaborating different projects with. And so I usually start out early in the morning, either editing or polishing that work or drafting new outlines for new stories. Um, and then I pretty much do that all through the morning. And then at 2 o'clock is when I break and I do interviews or podcasts or anything else in the afternoon.
Okay. This one was a little earlier, I guess, than normal for you.
Yeah, this is absolutely my prime production time, but I
Oh.
screwed up in having to cancel on you a few times. So
Oh.
I didn't think it was fair to make you wait anymore. So yeah, I never ever do anything before 2 o'clock ever under any circumstances, because if I'm not producing during that time, I'll never make up that time. It's not like I could do it after dinner. My brain is just done by that
Yeah.
time. And so I have to get my creative production in before lunchtime. And then I always have lunch with my wife. And then by 2 o'clock, that's when, I'll do interviews like this, or I batch my stuff, because a lot of we have a podcast called The Smarter Artist,
Hmm.
which is just 5 to 7 minute, like snippets, like
Yeah.
how do I write a product description, that kind of thing. And we'll answer one single question like that. And so I batch those in groups of 10.
Hmm.
So I'll schedule a time, for like a 2-hour block, and just do 10 of them in a row. And I'll do that once a month, and that's enough. There's several of us recording those, so it's a daily podcast. But I just need to
Hmm.
do one 2-hour block once a month, and that's all my content for that podcast. We have another one called Entrepreneur's Almanac, which is kind of a real-time look into our story studio as we build it. And those are 15-minute
Hmm.
episodes. And same thing, I do 2 a month, and I just record them back to back. But I schedule all of that. So I'm very, very routine oriented, because it's the only way I could get as much done as I do.
Yeah.
We produce about 3 million words in our company every month. I mean, sorry, every year. Every month would be ridiculous. Every year. Plus we have 9 podcasts. Plus we're, doing kind of amazing things. Like right now we're building this app called Story Shop, which should be a game changer for writers. And
Hmm.
like that all takes just a lot of brain power, and I need to make sure that, I I have enough of it. So a schedule is really important.
Yeah. I'll be linking to all of your stuff in the show notes, like your podcast network. I need to peruse all those different shows. I've seen you guys talk about indie publishing on YouTube, and it is pretty hilarious. But some of these other shows you're talking about, I have not heard yet. So,
Yeah, a
uh,
lot of them, we just thought, how can we best leverage what we're doing? So
mhm.
another example of a show we have is called Backstory, and we actively don't promote it. That's so not the point of the show.
Hmm.
But every time we finish a book, we get on a hangout and we record a 30-minute
Hmm.
episode that's just about that book. It's like the DVD commentary, and
Yeah.
we talk about the book and then we link to that episode in the back of the book. So it's like extras for our readers and they love that stuff and it bonds them to us as authors. It bonds them to the material more. It makes them look forward to sequels. And it's a great way to kind of leverage the network.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Like listening to directors talk about their movies, authors talk about their books. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what special tools do you use?
We use Scrivener, Dropbox,
Mm-hmm.
Asana, Slack, Zoom. We will be using StoryShop once it hits beta next week. That'll become pretty much the core component to everything we do, actually.
Does Story Shop have a website?
Yeah, it's getstoryshop.com.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess that's most of it. Here I'm looking at my my doc, but that's pretty much it. Slack is amazing for team communications. Asana's great for project managing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Scrivener clearly is. It's not the best solution, but it's the best solution available. The problem is all of our stuff is collaborative, and
Mm-hmm.
Scrivener is not a collaborative tool. That's not a flaw on its part. It was never meant to be a collaborative tool.
Yeah.
But everything we write is collaborative, so it's really hard because we're just syncing that through Dropbox, and it doesn't always work as well as we'd like.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit more about. I want to go back to Ghostwriter Dad, those days, because that's where a lot of the Build Your Own Blog audience is at right now. How did you grow your audience back then? I mean, what content were you producing, and was it all writing? Was there some video involved?
It was all writing and it was just SEO content. Like I was just writing stuff to gather clients. So,
Yeah.
that was it. It was very basic. There was not a lot of passion or love in that site.
Okay.
My writer dad was all passion, all love, no money.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostwriter Dad was basically just to get clients. And then
Mm-hmm.
once I started working with Lori, she paid me enough to basically turn down all other offers.
Mm-hmm.
So I exclusively worked for her. So I didn't really need, I didn't really need the site anymore. So it just kind of
Mm-hmm.
atrophied. And then after I spent a long time with her, kind of learning the business. She was in a couple of very high-end masterminds, and I would go with her, and I really understood traffic and conversion at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I built the digital writer, just kind of for fun, I guess, to see if I could do it. And we got 15,000 email addresses in I don't know 3 months or something,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was fun.
Wow.
But then I didn't care enough about it. Like I I just I just wanted to do something I loved, so I started writing fiction and stopped that. And so I guess I guess the biggest takeaway there is you really have to do what you love because otherwise you're going to burn out.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't you say that even though Ghostwriter Dad was not a blog you were passionate about, it did serve a business purpose,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yes. It paid the bills and it served me very well. And I mean, it absolutely changed my life because without it, I would never have met Lori and I never would have moved to Ohio. I never would have been a part of those masterminds. I never would have, I think I'd still be writing fiction right now, just like I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have taken a very different path to get there. And
Yeah.
I love the path I took. I feel like there were a lot of hiccups along the road, but
Yeah.
they were all, they're all part of the journey, and I'm proud of the path.
Yeah, as you should be. Here's a question for you that maybe you've not been asked before. This one is coming from me as a dad and a fellow writer dad, so to speak. So I've read a few articles in the past year that talk about how entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley techies are homeschooling their children. And I saw in one interview you did that you said your children attend public school, but then you also said that previously in your public school experience, it wasn't exactly positive because it somehow convinced you that you weren't a good storyteller. So, do your kids still attend public school? And if so, are you concerned about their education considering they get little to no entrepreneurial training or creative encouragement?
Um, okay, let me start at the beginning there. So, one of the reasons we moved to Ohio
Yeah.
was because Lori's children went to pretty much the most amazing school I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And I knew my children could go there too. She would pay me enough to send them there. That was kind of part of the deal. And it was an amazing, amazing private school.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that was, part of the impetus. So we get there, they're there for 3 years, and then we moved to Austin. And right now, my children are in public school, and I like their school right now better than the private school they were at in Ohio. It's amazing. They get plenty of creative impetus.
Hmm.
The school they go to has not just tons of art. They have robotics and podcasting and script writing,
Hmm.
and it's amazing. It's one of the best schools in the country. So it just kind of depends on where you live.
Hmm.
But we specifically moved to the area of Austin that we live in right now to go to that school. And we pay more than I'd like to to live here,
Yeah.
but it's still cheaper than private school. It's just I
Hmm.
figure our higher rent is like tuition. Um,
Hmm.
so I don't feel like it's the school's job to teach my children entrepreneurial stuff. I feel like that's my job.
Hmm. Hmm.
So no, I don't. I mean, yeah, I wish they did, but I feel like if you're Austin is a very entrepreneurial town, so I feel like they're getting that just by us living here and by I'm very open about my business. I'm constantly teaching them through example,
Hmm.
and I bring my business to the dinner table every night and talk about
Yeah.
life. And so what I need them to do is to go to school to learn how to be people, to get their very basic
Hmm.
skills and to interact with other children their age and sit and follow directions, be under someone else's governorship for a while. I
Hmm.
think those things are important. I don't
Hmm.
expect them to teach my children to be entrepreneurs.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious how you would answer that. Going, looking at your experience with school and
Yeah, I did not have a good experience in school. I was a smart kid
mhm.
who was a terrible student and got bad grades. And I actually thought I didn't even like to learn. Now, as an adult, I realize, oh my God, I love to learn. I
Yeah.
just, I just need to be given the right tools and the right reasons. And I'm very conscious of where my children are, and I make sure that they have the very best school experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And that's interesting too, what you were saying about, sharing what you've been doing at the dinner table. I think that's great. I
I
have
think
a,
that's just I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, I have a 6 and a 4 year old, and their first words were blog. So,
Oh, that does not surprise me. I think that it's our job as parents to not make our crap their crap.
hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
just because I had a bad experience in school doesn't mean they need to. I should be aware of what my experience is so I can help it to inform me to make the very best possible choices for them.
Hmm.
And, they do. That's why we moved to Ohio. That's why we moved to this area of Austin. And so, being aware of what we want for them is super important. But we can't just, say, oh, well, I had a terrible, you know, time in school growing up. So they're, it's just, it's writing it off. It's a pessimistic view of the world.
Yeah. You definitely are a positive guy, and I think that is a key to your success.
Thank you.
So, kind of going back, you have this, you call it a book studio, Sterling and Stone
Story studio. Yeah.
story studio. Um,
The only reason I draw the distinction is because we'll be doing graphic novels and video games and really I mean we have a cool fiction podcast coming, so it's just all kinds of medium. It's not just books.
awesome. So, is that has a blog that's going to be coming out? Is that the site you were talking about?
Yeah, that'll be ready by summer, late summer probably.
Okay, cool. How important or how tied into the bottom line of Sterling and Stone is your blog?
It's not. It's almost at this point it's irrelevant. We're trying to change that, um, but
Hmm.
but it's not. I mean, we get by on publishing books, doing a lot of podcasts,
Hmm.
emailing our lists when we have new books, but the blog plays almost no part in that currently.
Okay, but you do have some business goals for it later on.
Yeah, like it is important to have a home base for people,
Hmm.
and not just building, our reputation on other platforms. Right now, we do a lot on Blab. That's
Okay.
where we're recording our podcast live because a lot of people show up
Hmm.
and like to watch them live. So there's great community interaction there for sure,
Yeah.
and it'd be nice to have some of that on the blog. And if we had a better blog experience, there would be comments after the podcast and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But it's such a miserable experience the way the site is set up now that there's just no reason for people to interact with it at all.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Can you tell us real quick how you partnered up with Johnny and David?
Yeah, so Dave was he was going to buy the domain name WriterDad, and uh, I bought it first. I didn't know him, but he emailed me after, I don't know, I'd been blogging for like 2 weeks and says, I want to hate you, but I really like the way you write. And we just became instant friends. And I've
Hmm.
worked with Dave for the entire time I've been online now. And I met Johnny. I knew Johnny in the way people online. I had never
Hmm.
met him in person, but we both wrote about 25 different posts for Copy Blogger back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And so I knew him as a fellow Copy Blogger author. And then we we met in New York. Just we both happened to be at Blog World, and I guess that was 2011.
Hmm.
And in late 2011, I was launching Yesterday's Gone, which was our first serial that Dave and I wrote
Hmm.
and published to Amazon. And I was looking to promote it, so I asked if I could do an interview on his blog, and he said sure. And so he interviewed me for 34 minutes, and then kind of
Hmm.
became obsessed with that interview. He would go running and listen to it over and over and over and over again. And just the idea that publishing fiction was a viable business model for the first time was really attractive to him because,
Hmm.
he'd been wanting to write fiction forever and there was a lot of roadblocks, like I'm not
Hmm.
going to do the query thing again. I did that. And so he'd spent 12 years writing his first novel and, he just, he suggested we start a podcast, all three of us, and that we could kind of talk about the business together. But he very quickly got it and kind of became the leader as far as how much is written.
Hmm. Wow. All right. Well, I'm coming down to the last few questions. So, Sean, what do you think has been your greatest achievement as a writer so far?
Well, bringing the community together, I think, has been really awesome. I think I've done that with the power of language, and I'm very proud of that. Not just an amazing team at Sterling and Stone, but we have an amazing, amazing, just remarkable community. We just had our first big live event a month ago, the Smarter Artist Summit in Austin. And we had a couple of hundred just really amazing people there. And it was just so awesome to see that all the writers in that room were doing the work. They weren't petty or bitchy or whiny at all. They were just like
Hmm.
doing the work. And Write, Publish, Repeat, which was a book, it's a nonfiction book we wrote for our podcast audience a
Hmm.
few years back.
Hmm.
I guess 3 years ago now. And uh, you know, like you kind of had to talk me into writing that book just because it's writing nonfiction for me isn't as fun as writing fiction.
Hmm.
But that book has, I think that any writer would love to hear somebody say, your book changed my life. And I,
Hmm.
like it feels weird to say it, but I've lost number of the times people have said that to me about Write, Publish, Repeat. And it's taught writers that writing is a matter of math. Building a career, it's a mathematical thing instead of waiting for lightning to strike like it used to be. And
Hmm.
so I'm very proud of having written that book with Johnny and a little bit of help from Dave. Um, and I think that the impact it's made in the community is, been pretty fantastic.
Hmm. That's a book I need to read. Sounds like. Yeah, WriterDad has been instrumental in my development and actually changed my life. So,
Oh, well, thank you very much for saying that.
yeah.
Yeah, Write, Publish, Repeat is just kind of the nuts and bolts and how to
Hmm.
of how our business works. And we wrote it, as an answer to our podcast after the first year because we're always so off topic. And
Hmm.
it was a way of saying, okay, here's all the stuff we talk about, but without all the side tangents. Although the book does have side tangents because that's just how we're wired.
Right. No rabbit trails in this book. Okay. So, where do you see blogging going? What is the future of blogging?
Um, Well, I think that it's like I think the content marketing side, it's just not what it was, and I don't think it will
Hmm.
be again. I think that it's in transition because there's just so much competing for our attention,
Yeah.
and I think that the only way you're really going to stand out is if you use different kinds of medias
Yeah.
all in the right way and put them together. So a blog that acts as a hub, I think, is super sensible, which is exactly how we're building ours. I feel very much like we're building a
Hmm.
semi-future-proof blog, and it's taken us, a couple years. Like we've not rushed into this at all. We thought it's better to have nothing than something half-assed, which is kind of what we have now is nothing.
Yeah.
And we're putting a tremendous amount of thought into the layout and the just the architecture of the site so that it's a seamless user experience because that's what really matters.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I think that blogging as a, you know, write this style of article and publish this number of weeks, I think that that's just going to continue to lose its value. I think it's a matter of
Hmm.
getting your authentic voice out there and truly, truly
Hmm.
resonating with the people that you want, your ideal reader, essentially.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch the recent John Morrow article about this?
No, I didn't. I did have barbecue with John Morrow a couple of weeks ago,
Oh,
though. That
wow.
was fun.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But no, I didn't. I
Yeah.
imagine he said the same thing though.
Yeah, yeah. He was basically talking about how the how-to articles don't work anymore. Like in 2007, a simple article like how to cook brown rice could do really well, but today it won't do as well. And so he talked about how it's all about having to um, tell how to do something, uniquely or in your own way, differently. That's the word.
Right. And,
Um, it,
and I
it,
couldn't agree with that more. You have to put your personality into it. So for
yeah.
example, and this sucks. It's not going to be a very good example. But there are a lot of only because I can't get specific, but there are a lot of writing books out there with
Hmm.
like how to write fast, how to draft a novel in 24 hours or blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. And we wanted to put out a new writing book for our audience because they love it when we do and we don't do it enough. And so my major hurdle there was, I don't want to put out another writing book because there's so many there, and it's just like I don't want to be repetitive and say the same
Hmm.
thing. But then I finally thought of an idea, and it's a little premature because the book is still in early production, so I don't want to say it. But I
Hmm.
thought of an idea that was very clever, and it was a way of saying what no one has said before. And then I
Hmm.
thought, okay, well, that's worth our time. We can get behind that idea. And I
Yeah.
think that if you approach blogging with how can I do something that is sticky but also unique, that's what you need to look for because the old 2008 school of blogging is just dead.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I started to realize as we were talking about your past. Some of this stuff is so different it's so different for you starting out than it is for this, someone starting today. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. So, to wrap up, so what does the future hold for Sean Platt?
Oh, well, I think we're just getting started. I could not be more excited about Story Shop. We wanted to build a perfect tool for our company, essentially, so that we could write better stories faster. But the app, it would turn out that we wanted
Hmm.
would cost about $80,000.
Hmm.
And so we did a Kickstarter for it, and basically told our audience, hey, if you guys want this tool also, then here's how we can get it done. And we raised $84,000 and built the tool, and it'll be ready in a couple of weeks
Wow.
in beta. So that's really exciting. We'll be making TV and movies and within a few years.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been a big goal, but I don't want to skip our steps. We got to lay the foundation first, and that's where we are right now, just making sure that we,
Yeah.
get all of our I mean, Bedrock isn't pretty, but it needs to be built. And so
Yeah.
so that's what we're working on now. But, 5 years from now, we'll have a movie or two, and, we'll have TV. The app will probably be, I don't know, if it should be big. It
Hmm.
seems like it has all the right ingredients. And
Now,
we'll
when you
just
say TV, are you talking about network television?
no, no, I wouldn't do a network deal right now. I would do cable.
Hmm.
I would do streaming, Netflix, Amazon, any of the cable networks, or probably most likely we'll just make something ourselves. And
Hmm.
5 years from now is going to be a very different climate. And just like
Hmm.
indie book publishing came and indie music publishing came, indie production for TV and movies will come also. And we're just preparing for that day.
Do you write screenplays?
I just started. I've written 5 and I've thrown 3 away,
Yeah.
and 2 are being shopped right now. But that is my new discipline. That is definitely, again, I've wanted to do it for a long time, but I wasn't ready. And last
Hmm.
year I was ready, and this year I'm actually getting better.
Yeah. I have one under my belt, but I was a collaboration with a good friend of mine who's got like 20 under his belt and he wins contests and so I'm hoping to ride his coattails
Uh,
someday.
that's a good plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is, it's a definitely a different discipline than writing long form novels, but
Yeah.
it's fun, and film is my
Hmm.
first love.
Excellent. Well, Sean Platt, it's been a pleasure.
Oh,
Thank you
my
for
pleasure.
yeah,
I'm
thank you for sharing your story with us today.
happy to be here.